Okay, today we're taking a look at the latest addition to PaddleTek's Bantam line, their new hybrid GTO-C paddle in both 12.7 and 14.3 millimeters. And these are some really fun paddles that I think will appeal to a lot of folks. But before we get too far along, I want to let you know PaddleTek is letting me give one of these babies away for free. So be sure to stick around until the end of the video to see how to enter. And if you want to get a head start, you can go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Also, if you really want to stay on top of all the latest when it comes to pickleball gear news and updates, including some of the stranger stuff a lot of the other reviewers aren't talking about, you should definitely check out and subscribe to my new podcast, Is This a Pickleball Podcast with Matthew K. Pickleball. And you should know, my co-host Wilson told me if we don't get some more subscribers, he's going to jump ship and try and get with Jacob and Mr. Tickle to Third Wheel All Drives Pod. So for no other reason than to maintain peace in the pickleball pod universe, you should definitely check out what we're doing. You can catch all the latest episodes here on YouTube as well as on all the major podcast platforms. And now let's talk specs and paddle design really quickly. And there's a lot of unique tech going into these, so definitely don't skip ahead. First, I want to go over the thinner one, as this is the one that I think lots and lots of folks will want to grab. To be clear, the GTO-C shares a lot of DNA with PaddleTek's previous power-oriented Bantam paddles, except it's in their new hybrid shape, which is 16.25 inches by 7.75 inches with a roomy 5.5 inch handle and a 4.25 inch circumference grip. And this shape has become super popular ever since 6 Zero and Vatic pushed the hybrid shape into the spotlight. And many companies have since followed to much acclaim, including Honolulu Pickleball Company. But you'd be hard pressed to find another hybrid that's 12.7 millimeters thick, or should I say thin. Additionally, the GTO-C has super grabby T700 carbon fiber as the top layer of its face layup, with PaddleTek's scary powerful Gen 1 build inside of it, which utilizes a unique weighting system combined with wider 10mm cells in its polypropylene core to create a paddle that really cracks the ball. And if you've ever played across one of the PaddleTek's power paddles, you know what sound I'm talking about. And I actually cover this tech quite a bit in my breakdown of the Bantam ESQ-C and ALWC paddles from a while back for anyone that wants more info. And then PaddleTek aims to keep the GTO-C's weight close to 7.9 ounces, and the documents they've shared with me show a target swing weight of 121 and a target twist weight of 7.2. Although Pickleball Central advertises the 12.7 as having a swing weight closer to 118 with a tiny bump in the twist weight. As for the 14.3, it's built super similarly, but a bit thicker to give it a more plush feel, which we'll be talking about more soon. However, I did think the weighting system had been altered with this one because of how differently it played compared to its thinner counterpart. And after checking out both Pickleball Medicine and John Q's paddle dissections, it does appear PaddleTek is varying how they tune the perimeter weighting of the two thicknesses and are altering the steel ball weighted putty combo they're utilizing with each one. And if you want more nerdy info on how PaddleTek does this, definitely check out my other PaddleTek video I just mentioned. Interestingly, PaddleTek is keeping the same 7.9 ounce target static weight as seen in the 12.7 for the 14.3 GTO-C as well. However, the documents they shared with me show a target swing weight of 118 and a target twist weight of 6.7 for the 14.3. So less power than the thinner version with a lower twist weight. However, I personally didn't notice the sweet spot feeling any smaller. In fact, Pickleball Central advertises the 14.3 as actually having a 6.95 twist weight. Finally, both thicknesses of the GTO-C have a limited lifetime warranty, although you'll want to register to make sure you're eligible. And then PaddleTek also has a 30-day return window. So not only does PaddleTek think you'll love their gear, since those kinds of return windows are becoming less and less common, they're also really standing behind the durability of their paddles with that lifetime warranty, which is pretty much unheard of nowadays. And this makes complete sense, as these paddles are cold press, so they never undergo heating or pressure when being manufactured, which means disc bonding and core crushing are much less likely compared to many of the other honeycomb power paddles available right now. Also, PaddleTek's paddles are made in the US, which I presume makes quality control much easier as well. As for price, PaddleTek is selling these for their typical $250 price point. However, this time they are allowing discount codes, so promo code MatthewK will knock off 25 bucks, making the final price $225. However, that code is supposed to expire on September 30th, so if you're watching this video and it doesn't work anymore, I suggest trying my link for Pickleball Central as well. A $25 discount might auto-populate in your cart, but you have to use my specific link and give it a try. As of the recording of this video though, both sites are utilizing the $25 discount, but PaddleTek does have a history of ending their discount promos across sites, so if you want one at that lower price, I wouldn't wait too long. And now let's talk a bit about performance and how these two paddles compare. While they may be built super similarly, they don't play exactly the same way, and we'll get to the differences in a moment. But for me, both paddles felt a little head heavy when I initially received them. However, when I actually played with them, I never thought they felt draggy or slowed me down in hands battles. And to be honest, I'm typically super sensitive with head heavy paddles, which is one of the reasons the Gearbox Ultimate always bothered me. That being said, I did experiment quite a bit with adding some handle weight to both of these, just because it's something I've really been enjoying lately. And I ended up splitting my testing with the 12.7mm one in particular, with it stock, plus my grip setup, and with it weighted up in the handle with a 6-gram flick weight. If you're someone that likes doing flicks and being a windshield wiper at the kitchen, I definitely recommend trying out a flick weight. After promo code MatthewK, they're super cheap and they're a lot of fun. And then I actually used Lucci's overgrips for these paddles, and I was super impressed by the Tactician line in particular. They're super close to the grip and tack you get with Tourna Mega Tack, but maybe with a tad more cushion. Promo code MatthewK should work with them as well. But beyond that, I actually didn't want to customize these paddles too much because I liked how they played out of the box. And remember, PaddleTek basically tunes the weight for you before they put the edge guard on. So I highly recommend you try them stock before you try your typical weight setup. And both versions of the GTO-C do have more heft on big swings compared to their standard shape ALWC and ESQC counterparts, which PaddleTek says they try to keep close to a 110 swing weight compared to the GTO-C's 118 to 121 target range. But while the new GTO-Cs have their swing weights amped up, PaddleTek is trying to keep their twist weights close to the previous standard shape line. So you've got similar stability and sweet spot as their standard options, but with more power on bigger swings. And that definitely came through with my play testing. But to be honest, the reason I think most people gravitate towards PaddleTek paddles is for lightweight paddles that have competitive power as well as super aggressive pop. And these new versions do not disappoint. Just like the other models, the new hybrid versions have the ball sit briefly on the face before popping off. But unlike many of the new foam paddles coming out, this acceleration off the face isn't the result of exaggerated dwell into the paddle head followed by a propulsive launch. Instead, I think this pop is the result of a combination of a few things. First, it's PaddleTek's wider 10mm cells, which seems to be made from relatively soft polypropylene that's more elastic. At least that's what I've been able to glean from paddle nerds even nerdier than me. Shout out to Pickleball Etc., Pickleball Medicine, and John Q. And to be honest, this more elastic polypropylene is likely only viable with a non-thermoform paddle that doesn't undergo heating or any sort of pressure when it's being built, which is probably why we don't see it utilized in many other brands' paddles, if any. So while the bigger cells and relatively softer polypropylene allows for a nice cushion to absorb the ball, don't forget, PaddleTek's utilizing cores that are thinner than almost all the other popular paddles. So while we have a cushion for your ball, it's a thin one. Additionally, there's one final factor at play here, the face layup. John Q has reported, at least in regards to the 12.7mm version, that the GTO-C is utilizing a single bottom layer fiberglass with a single top layer of carbon fiber as its layup. And having just 2 layers of material in a paddle's layup is very unusual. I think this thinner layup combined with the unique non-thermoform core is the magic combo here. It allows for a super lightweight paddle that's got very good power, but super aggressive pop that is still very easy to shape. These paddles play linearly, in my opinion, so they're much more predictable for players that don't have a ton of swing to their hits. I would say they're more ping-pongy, while a lot of the new foam paddles utilize a tennis racket feel, especially the CRBN TruFoam series. And I personally really like PaddleTek's approach. For me, I don't play singles, and my game is all about getting to the kitchen, so big drives and tennis strokes really aren't what I need from a paddle. I want my paddle to be aggressive in hands battles, but with predictable pop that doesn't have a super delayed launch off the paddle face. For me, paddles that have a ton of dwell that then accelerate the ball off the face leads to pop-ups. I prefer a more traditional touch and feel, as my first introduction to paddle sports was actually through pickleball. I don't have any muscle memory for stringed rackets. That kind of ball feel is actually very unfamiliar to me, and I've noticed my game is not super well suited for paddles in that category. Fortunately, PaddleTek has the answer for me, and it took the most basic pickleball manufacturing technique and created something that is a real outlier when it comes to performance. And I do want to emphasize that these paddles can generate a lot of power, more than what you think would be possible for a Gen 1 build. And I'm sure it helps that PaddleTek basically does a custom weighting setup inside of the paddle with those steel balls and putty to really boost the power. So they're super competitive with everything that's on the market, even paddles using brand new technology. As for the big difference between the 12.7 and 14.3, PaddleTek did tone the power down on the thicker version. And since this is a Gen 1 paddle, the old rule of thinner cores being more powerful is in effect here. So while you still have good power and pop with the 14.3, it's definitely relatively muted compared to its thinner sibling, which makes it even easier to shape your shots and be aggressive with your placement rather than fast response time. For me, I think the GTO-Cs are on a wider play style spectrum compared to their ALWC and ESQC counterparts. But I wouldn't say the 14.3 GTO-C is a control paddle. Instead, it's like using a paintbrush for your shots and strokes, while the 12.7 is a pistol. I know that's kind of a crazy analogy, but I hope that provides some insights. Both are super functional tools, just different in what they're trying to do. And now that brings me to my final recommendation. Should you pick one of these up? Okay, PaddleTek paddles are pricey. There's no getting around that. However, unlike the surge of full foam paddles coming to market, I really don't see a lot of other companies doing what PaddleTek is doing. I think it's in part that their paddle formula is designed for US manufacturing, and they've really mastered that and used its limitations as a launching pad to find really creative ways to keep their gear competitive. Their innovation and technique is super unique. And if you grab one of these before September 30th, you can save 10% with promo code MatthewK, making one of these only $225. And that is definitely still up there in price, but once again, there aren't many, if any, alternatives for lightweight bangers like these. There's a reason so many pros use paddles from the Bantam line. Ultimately, if you have the budget, I think it's worth picking one of these up. But if you're looking for something easier on the wallet, definitely dig around on the channel, as there are a ton of other really good paddles out there, even if you're on a budget, just not the same flavor as PaddleTek. And that's all I've got. If you've watched until the end, definitely leave a comment and let me know what you think of what PaddleTek is up to. Are you gonna get one? And before we talk about today's giveaway, I wanted to also let you know there's another giveaway for one of Honolulu's brand new next gen paddles in my recent video covering their new lines. If you haven't checked that video out, you definitely should. And be sure to enter that giveaway because those are some super fun paddles. As for the PaddleTek GTO-C paddle giveaway, I'm super pumped to share that PaddleTek is letting me give one of these babies away for free. All you need to do is like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment which version you'd like to win and why, and then fill out the Google form in the description so I have a way to contact you if you win. And that's it. I'll run the raffle in about a month, so be on the lookout for an email. Good luck. Finally, if you found this video helpful, please consider using promo code MatthewK on your next paddle purchase to help support the channel. I have a lot of the popular brands listed below, and my master list has even more. And I'll be sure to leave a link to PaddleTek's site at the very top. You can also support the channel by purchasing some of the cool pickleball gear I've been testing out by using the links and codes in the video description below. I also have a link to my favorite pickleball gear you can get on Amazon down there as well, and that's got some really cool hidden gems you wouldn't expect. And then of course, hitting that like button, subscribing to the channel, and slamming that notification bell all go a long way to helping me out as well. Thank you so much for the support. But most importantly, I hope you get to pickle soon, and just don't forget, it's about having fun.